Ah yes, it's that time of year again. With the July summer nights on the horizon, it's time to start thinking about what the 2020 roster will look like in Daytona next February. Most other professional sports leagues don't even worry about next season until warm-ups start, but here we are analyzing transactions with 19 races left in the current season. Not to mention, most of the driver contracts and earnings are kept private, which differs from our knowledge in other sports leagues. Did you guys know players are now making $400 million to swing a bat for 13 seasons? No matter how good or athletic you are, paying more on a player than what it takes to build a stadium is a complete joke, especially in this society. Getting back on track, it's time to analyze the 2020 NASCAR silly season, as while it shouldn't be as hectic as 2018 and 2019, there are still a ton of game-changing decisions for a handful of race teams. Before we analyze potential outcomes, make sure to leave a like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for weekly content on this channel. That elusive 10,000 number is straight ahead, so make sure you add to the growing total by left-clicking the red button. Unsurprisingly, Joe Gibbs Racing is the center of attention once again for the 2020 edition of driver transactions. In addition to signing Kyle Busch to a long-term deal, they signed Christopher Bell through next season, to the distaste of myself and many other JGR haters alike. The last thing JGR needs is 3 championship caliber drivers completely dominating and drubbing the competition. Coach Joe is one snap away from achieving his ultimate goal of having Denny, Kyle Busch, MTJ, and C. Bell win at least 3/4 of the races on the schedule. As a result, the 20 cars become the target as C. Bell's permanent ride, especially with Erik Jones' greatly disappointing expectations. The Byron, Michigan native ranks outside the playoffs with only 8 top 10 finishes on the year and a middling average finish of 15.3. Daniel Suarez was shafted after 2 mediocre seasons in the 19s, so the same will happen to that Jones boy, right? Fortunately for Jones, Coach Joe has expressed his intentions to keep the young prospect under the JGR umbrella. The two sides are currently working on a contract extension, and with the comments of driver, owner, as well as Christopher Bell, it sounds like Erik Jones is a part of the organization's long-term plan. With that said, we've seen contracts fall apart and changes occur in the series when the core was set to remain intact. Even with sponsor Stanley Black & Decker's contract up for renewal, I'd give it an 85% chance Erik Jones and Chris Gale remain a part of the 20 team. I don't think Joe Gibbs is willing to give up now, and with Denny Hamlin's contract expiring next season, it might be a better long-term decision to keep Bell out of the mothership. The other route to the NASCAR Cup Series relies with Levine Family Racing, as the Toyota satellite team could play as a seat warmer as JGR waits for an opening. Option 1 would be a second race team, but in recent weeks, Bob Levine has retracted from the idea, and he's even expressed doubt about his single car operation as well. The most realistic scenario would rely in Christopher Bell replacing Matt DiBenedetto in the team's number 95 Toyota. DiBurrito's contract comes with an option for 2020, and with his mediocre performance and pressure from JGR, it could be one and done. The 4th place finish at Sonoma shows potential for a turnaround, but Mike Wheeler and company need to consistently show that pace if DiBenedetto wants to retain the 95 next season. Stewart-Haas Racing is in the same boat, with third-year Xfinity driver Cole Custer becoming a results-churning machine in the lower leagues. He has scooped out 4 wins and has made that elusive step to becoming a championship-caliber driver. He went head-to-head with Kyle Busch at Auto Club and Joey Logano at Chicagoland, and he won both of those matchups. His potential in a SHR Mustang tastes promising, which only ramps up a crucial 2020 silly season for Smoke's organization. One driver smelling the fumes is Clint Bowyer, as the successor of Tony Stewart in the 14 has greatly underachieved over the past 3 campaigns. The Emporia, Kansas native only has 2 wins in his 91 starts with the team, and he has greatly regressed compared to his results 1 season ago. While you can put blame on the Ford Mustang, the team has been inconsistent and sits on the cut line to make the postseason. Even worse, the infamous age number might also come back to haunt Bowyer. He just turned 40 last month, and usually this is the number that starts the countdown to retirement. Jeff Gordon, Tony Stewart, Dale Jr., and Matt Kenseth have all retired over the past 5 seasons in their mid-40s. Compared to other drivers and teams, Tony Stewart and Gene Haas have a tough decision to make with Clint Bowyer. If you let him go to promote Cole Custer, the 14 might become inconsistent and the loss of a stable veteran might provide more growing pains down the road. If you extend him for 3 more years, however, you make a huge risk in believing the last few seasons were a fluke and the future development with Mike Bugaravich will eventually translate to championship success. One factor that might make the decision easier is sponsorship, as there are a good amount of Haas Automation races present on the 14 still. Honestly, if I'm Clint Bowyer right now, the pressure is building to win races and become an impact driver for the team. Meanwhile, Daniel Suarez is signed through next season. However, there is a way he could get axed from the 41. His deal comes with an option for 2020, and if he doesn't get that extension, it will be one and done for Monterrey, Mexico's pride and joy. There could be no Despacito for NASCAR's fans south of the border. Fortunately, ERA CEO Carlos Slim has one of the deepest NASCAR pockets, and I believe his involvement with Suarez will increase next season. You have to remember, ERA still has a contract with JGR, so they had to buy out of that deal on the Cup side, while Juniper still funds a handful of events for Brandon Jones. The company should sponsor a good 20 races in the future, which should keep Daniel Suarez on track to capture the 2024 championship. As for AA, Eric Almirola, with his consistency and deep playoff run in 2018, he should be a long-term driver for SHR's 4-car stable. One obstacle still looms, however, as sponsor Smithfield's contract expires after 2019. The good news for Almirola fans is that the company seems invested into the on-track product and wants to see results for years to come. With that said, sponsor Nationwide carry that same persona with Alex Bowman, and recently the insurance provider announced the exit from the 88 team after they declined the 2020 option. The Bacon King should be ready to sizzle once again in 2020, but it isn't a done deal just yet. Just ask Richard Petty Motorsports how its negotiations with the company went a couple years ago. In terms of the Chevrolet camp, the biggest rumors are actively swirling around Chip Ganassi Racing. The known priority this season relies with its number 1 car, as Kurt Busch is set to become a free agent after Homestead. The Las Vegas native has expressed his desire to remain competitive in the NASCAR Cup Series, and if he feels that door is closing, the Elder Busch will retire off into the sunset. To the delight of Chip Ganassi, Kurt has been a solid hire, scoring 4 top 5s, 9 top 10 finishes, and ranking 8th in points solidly over the cutoff. The reasoning for this hire was to improve Ganassi's 2-car operation and better perform with the new Chevrolet Camaro. Unless a midseason collapse occurs, the one team led by Matt McCall is a championship contender despite 0 wins on the campaign. There's a contending window for at least 2 more seasons, and it would be foolish for Kurt Busch to opt out now considering the successes this season. With that said, there has been some speculation around the overall health of Chip Ganassi Racing. DC Solar going bankrupt has reportedly left a financial hole for the 2-car operation, and one of the options considered for the future is shutting down the team. While I'm not buying into it just yet, just remember we all thought Furniture Racing was going to return for 2019. They even stated fielding a car is not an option. A few months later, however, the team ceased operations because 5-Hour Energy left a sponsorship hole in the race team. If Chip Ganassi decides to lock its doors, it means Kyle Larson becomes a free agent. Despite his disappointing results this season, he will without a doubt get a ride for the 2020 campaign. Sponsors Credit One Bank and McDonald's will follow him to new opportunities, and whether it's Stewart-Haas Racing, Penske, or an outsider, the change will be a massive breath of fresh air for the California native. Kurt Busch, however, would have more challenges. He doesn't carry the hype and youthfulness that his teammate carries, which would make him a harder long-term sell to any organization. If Chip Ganassi Racing dies, then likely will Kurt Busch's career, unless a powerhouse organization considers restructuring for 2021. After a resurgent performance at Chicagoland, Hendrick Motorsports has some momentum after a solid but not fantastic first half of the season. In terms of roster changes, the core will remain intact through at least next season. Chase Elliott is signed through 2022, while Jimmy Johnson and Alex Bowman have 1 season remaining on their contracts. William Byron's deal is unknown, but I highly doubt Rick Hendrick gives him the axe after 2 seasons. After all, Chad Knaus has that team solidly into the playoffs, and the 24 is greatly funded with Exalta, Liberty University, and Hertz sponsoring the efforts. The only task on Rick Hendrick's hands is to find a new primary sponsor for Alex Bowman, but with a statement win last weekend, the 88 should have no issues finding a corporate partner. With that said, 2021 is going to be a crucial year for NASCAR's most successful operation. Jimmy Johnson seems destined to retire unless he can find his competitive edge, so the possibly renumbered ride might see a fresh new face for the 2021 Speed Weeks. One thing to watch is whether HMS promotes Noah Gragson or if they decide to chase veteran free agents Brad Keselowski, Denny Hamlin, or potentially Kurt Busch to add more experience. Choose wisely, the potential 2020 dynasty depends on it. Finally, the 5-decade-old Richard Childress Racing could enact 2 long-term decisions to further strengthen its race team. The first relies with Tyler Reddick, as he has proven he can compete with the big boys in the NASCAR Cup Series. The organization is currently working on sponsorship to field a third entry for Tyler Reddick and hopefully turn the tides of the misfortunate 31. Right now, Pinnacle Bank, Simbacord, and Tame the Beast are heavily committed to Tyler Reddick and his racing, but the quantity is unknown. They're likely going to need some other corporations to fill the hole, which might be a tall task to accomplish. No doubt, Richard Petty Motorsports is a handshake away from death. They got lucky with Worldwide Technology CEO donating to Victory Junction, as the charity fund decided to give back to the 43 by funding its unsponsored events. With that said, the future does not look promising for 2020 and beyond. The rumor mill suggests a possible merger between RPM and RCR, which would ensure the 43 gets better equipment and funding to race the entire schedule. Not to mention, Richard Petty could get relieved of the stresses of keeping his team alive, and with the King in his early 80s, it might be for the better. In terms of both parties, they could benefit by combining its employees and information shared, with the biggest beneficiary being Bubba Wallace. He can race in mid-tier ECR equipment and not have to worry about job security with a crumbling single-car enterprise. Knowing that there is a tomorrow for his racing career can help him get out of his depression, and he could quite possibly improve on the results chart with the added confidence. For the sake of the legacy of the 43, hopefully this move pans out. So in terms of next season, this is how I see the field lining up for the 2020 Daytona 500. Ganassi stays afloat, with Kurt Busch and Kyle Larson signing short-term deals with the organization. Meanwhile, Eric Almirola and Daniel Suarez remain at Stewart-Haas Racing and sign 2-year contracts each. The only way I see these two removed from Tony Stewart's empire is if sponsorship value dries up or Kyle Larson becomes available on the free agent market. As for Clint Bowyer, his time is up at SHR, but he joins Front Row Motorsports in the Loves 34. What an interesting combination that would be. Richard Petty merges his operation with RCR, and Bubba Wallace gets a 2-year contract extension to prove his belongings in the league. With RCR expanding to 3 teams, they restrain from adding a 4th entry for Tyler Reddick, at least for 2020. He will get some more starts in the big leagues, but he will remain a Xfinity regular for at least 1 more season. Eric Jones remains with JGR and signs a long-term extension despite 1 win to begin his NASCAR Cup career. The biggest move, however, lies with Christopher Bell driving the 95 at Levine Family Racing. C. Bell has proven that he is ready, building experience, and becoming a championship contender, and he should be able to thrive driving for a satellite team. He might not make the postseason, but he will be a competitor just with his talents alone. Now watch sponsorship become an issue, and he's forced to share seat time with Brandon Jones in a part-time entry. Seeing what types of moves have happened in the last 2 silly seasons, I would not be surprised if this came reality. So anyways, this is NRF signing out, and just remember, life's a beach and then you drive.